The reason why I asked if she's recording is hi to those of you who are watching off-site at a future date, because we are now posting these on Blackboard. So if any of you would like access to any of our college reading success videos at a later date, just give us your 800 number and we can give you access to our site so you can access everything we have. In addition, we also have a plagiarism checker tool on our Blackboard site, which let me pull that up real quick and just go ahead and show it to you. I know that some of your professors will use safe assign for assignments, and that you know your score has to be below a certain number, but they may not tell you this number. On our Blackboard site called College Reading Success, under Content, which is where everything always is, we have this safe assigned draft submission. So you can submit here. It keeps it as a draft, so you don't have to worry about it uploading to the server, so your score won't be messed up. But you can submit, and after a few minutes, it will tell you what percentage of your paper is plagiarized or not. It's just one of those services that you can have. You don't have to ask our permission to use it. Once you're on the site, you can use that as many times as you need to. But today, we are talking about some general study skills. So we're going to talk, I'm going to start off before we start talking about some specific strategies, just some how to study smarter, not necessarily harder. There is one thing that every teacher has heard plenty of times when a student has gotten a bad grade is they'll say, I don't know what happened, I worked really hard. Well, let's say that I told you to go dig a hole. And I said, I want the hole right here. Instead, you dug the hole over there. Well, you worked hard digging that hole, but it wasn't the right spot. So your hard work doesn't matter. Your hard work when you study has to be purposeful. It has to be for a specific thing. One thing we're going to talk about a lot today are some strategies to help you best maximize your study time, how to best maximize your reading time. But I guess really the big takeaway is that hard work does not always equal success. You have to work smart. You have to study the right way. How much do you all currently study? Anybody want to tell me, honest answer? How much do you all study a week? Who studies 5 or fewer hours a week? Quite a few of you. Does anybody study, say, 12 or more? The rule of thumb is 2 to 3 hours for every hour you're in class, which means if you're taking a 15-hour course load, universities, and it's not just here, it's every university, expects that you should devote 30 to 45 minutes of study time outside of class. And I think there are very few people who can, and I'll be honest, when I was a student, I didn't always study this much either. I think back, if I put that much time in organic chemistry, that's kind of my albatross, the class that challenged me. If I put that much time in studying organic chemistry, I probably would have done better than the C I managed to get after 3 semesters. So some of it is we're just not studying enough. Now there is a program that I'll share before I turn it over to Christy called Get Cold Turkey. There are ways to maximize your time on the computer. There are ways to kind of shut down distractions. But how many of you have sat down to study and the next thing you know, you're on social media or Netflix or Reddit or somewhere other than studying and you're like, oh crap, I haven't done a thing. Does anybody not do that? Because if so, how do you avoid distractions?
Well, I have kids, so.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Moms are different. Moms have a superpower and they largely become focused.
That's right.
Dads don't even have that, but moms have that. For the most part, we get distracted. How many of you have done that? Have gotten distracted on the internet? Real quick, real easy. I mean, it doesn't take much. The truth of it is, no matter how much you currently study, I can almost guarantee you can find some time in there to study more. We're going to talk about time management, I think, next week. I think. We're talking about time management very soon, if not next week.
It doesn't look good that we don't know when that is.
It's not as bad as the time I was scheduled to give a time management workshop and I was triple booked. So it could be worse. But the whole concept of how we view studying, it's literally kind of ingrained in us. And I'm not going to read all this. But basically, when we're born, imagine like there are 2 areas of your brain. And one area is where you put things that, it's too bright, it's too hard, it's too difficult, I don't like it, this sucks. And that's where all the bad things go. Then you have the, okay, I'm a baby and I'm warm and safe and comforted and fed, and that's where all the good things go. And even as we grow and become adults, these 2 parts of our brain stay there. They stay active. And everything goes into the, oh, this is nice, I'm happy here, or this is hard and difficult. Guess which folder studying wants to go into? The hard folder. It's just what we do. Now, how do you fix it? You earn good grades. How good does it feel when you get a good grade on a test you were expecting to bomb? Think about that feeling. Have you ever just like almost geeked out in class, like, I got a grade, I got an 88 on this test, I was sure I had bombed it. How many of you have felt that? What does it feel like? Which folder does that go into? The good folder. Earning good grades is a reinforcer. You reinforce this behavior, you're more likely to want to keep doing it. And how do we get good grades? We study. I mean, college is kind of the last chance to sort of jumpstart your brain. Because here's the thing, how many of you had parents who, they may have read for pleasure, but they didn't do academic things? Probably all of us, because our parents, once you get into the workforce, for the most part, you don't have to keep studying anymore. This is it. After this, you're done. I'm not saying you're dying, but this is your last chance. Sorry, I worded that poorly. This is your last chance to strengthen that academic muscle. And for, who are my freshmen in here? Have any freshmen? For some of you, this is literally your last shot. You will have colleagues. How many of you have been in classes and there are already people who are dropping out or just aren't coming, so forth? You know when parking gets easier here at Western? Fall break. After fall break, parking becomes immensely easier. Why is that? Because people are leaving. So if
They're
you...
still here.
Well, some of them don't. Some of them go home. And then spring is even easier than fall because these people are now gone for good. And I'm not saying this to be mean or ugly. I'm saying it to kind of motivate you. If you don't succeed right now, you're not going to later. The non-traditional student who comes back, they exist. And they're motivated, but they're rare. We have some. I said we have some here right now. But for the most, and I'll be honest, my non-traditional students, because they've been out, they've seen the real world, they come back on fire, ready to do well. If you can do that now, you will be so much ahead of the game. What we're going to share with you today, and we have a lot of giveaways. Sorry for those of you who are off-site. We'll try to share some links to where you can at least duplicate some of these electronically. We have some reading tips, some study tips. You can plug me right here. We have some different strategies that we will share with you so you can maximize your study time. Because like we said last week, passive reading is pointless. Passive reading does you no good. We've all done it. I do it sometimes even now. I will sit down to read something and then I'll think about something else I need to do or something that is more interesting. And before I realize it, I've wasted 30 minutes moving my eyes over a sheet of paper and reading every word and absorbing none of it. That's passive reading. Today we're going to teach you some active reading tips that will help you to circumvent that. But again, it's all hard work.
Last week it was text annotation. I know not everybody was here, so we will go ahead and review that again, and we may or may not have a presentation.
Might just want to reload that. That's going really slow.
Alright, so all three of these are research-based strategies that we're going to be presenting, and if it won't load up, that's okay. I don't need it necessarily. The worst luck with technology.
You really do. You should stop using it.
I really should. It's all technology. That's because when everybody shares the computers and plugins are always up to date. Alright, so the first one we're going to look at is coding or annotating or both.
Let me just interrupt real quick. We will include a link to this Prezi on our Blackboard site as well. So if you're watching the video, you can find this in the folder where you found it.
Alright, so let me see if I can get it. Alright, so the first thing is, we talked about this last week for those that were here, but the idea is to mark up your book. How many of you actually write in your textbook as you're reading it and taking notes? Few of us do? Okay. Well, first we talked about that it's okay to write in the book. If you're not comfortable with it, there's some different things you can purchase. You can use Post-it notes. You can actually attach a separate page, whatever it is that you want to do. But the idea is, if you're writing it as you're reading, you're going to be more active. And I was really paying attention to myself as I did it this last week. Even as an instructor, I do when I'm getting ready for class. So if I'm going to present to my students a chapter, I'm writing in the margins the important things that I want to be able to talk to them about. I star things that I think are important figures that I want to be able to go over again. So you can annotate, usually you can use restating, saying something again in your own words, because if you know it in your own words, we say that the best way to know that you understand something is to be able to teach it to somebody else. If you've got it well enough that you can go talk to your roommate and say, hey, this is what I just read in my history book, and you can tell them all about it, you've probably got a pretty good handle on it. So when you're annotating, try to put it in your own words. Don't just recopy what the author said, but put it in your own words. The other thing you can do if you don't want to do that kind of annotating is you can use codes. So the 3 codes that you can use are VIP, questions, or star for interesting things, whatever it might be. And it really depends upon your purpose. Why are you reading this? The class that Mr. Logson, that we teach together, we have a discussion component of our class. So a lot of times our students have to read material just to be able to come to class and talk about it. There's not really a quiz necessarily. They might have to answer some questions, but it's strictly discussion based. Well, we know what we read for that. It's different than if I know there's going to be a test. So I tell them, mark your questions and mark those pages with a Post-it note. So when it comes time to discussion, there's nothing worse when you just read a 30-page chapter and you're like, I know the answer when the professor asks, and you're like, I know I made a note of that, and you're trying to flip through to find it. Who remembers what they read? If you have codes or if you put a Post-it note or some kind of marker, the idea is that you're going to be able to find it quicker in class and be able to participate more. And a lot of times there's classes where it's strictly based on your participation. You might have participation grade. Well, if you're just sitting there the whole class, how are they going to judge you for participation? So you can also add your reactions, your feelings. It depends upon why you're reading it, but any questions and make your connections. A little bit about highlighting. Many of us have a tendency to want to highlight things, but we talk about that highlighting is a promise that's never kept. We don't go back and look at it again. We make the page look really pretty, everything's really nice and yellowy or pink, but we don't do anything with it. The recommendation that I gave in our last session was pre-read. Read first, even if you don't read every word, but look through and see what's the chapter about. Then go back and highlight when you really read. Because the first read, everything seems important. It's the second read when you look at the whole chapter and you think, now I can kind of discern what's important. But at the beginning, everything seems like it should have been highlighted. So that's coding or annotating. So that's the first strategy. The second one is really just more questioning and actually stopping and thinking about, do you understand what you're reading? And we look at SQ3R. Does anybody know what the SQ with 3 R's? Anybody used that one before or heard of that one?
Great. Yeah. I've seen it.
You've seen it, okay. So basically, each of those letters stands for something. The first one is survey. And what you do when you survey, I'm not going to bring up the PowerPoint, is you look at the text, and you look at the captions, you look at the pictures, you look at your headings, you look at your subheadings. Think about the way that your textbooks are set up. Majority of textbooks. If you are using a book for a class that was actually written as a textbook, this strategy will work. We talk about, and I think we've now said it both sessions, it's hard work. This is probably one of the best strategies to use, but it does take a lot of time. First, you look at all the headings, the subheadings, the introductory paragraph, the final paragraph, the questions that are at the end of each chapter, if you have them. You look at the objectives. A lot of authors will put in the front of the chapter, by the time you've read this chapter, you should understand first, second, third, fourth. Maybe your professor will give it to you, but not always. So that's what we do, we survey. So I've really not read anything yet, I've just looked through and previewed. Similarly to, think about when you were little and you went to the library to pick up a book out of the library, and you would go and you just look at the cover, maybe flip through a couple pages, read the back, and you would decide right away whether or not you wanted to read that book. That's what survey is. We're just taking a little preview. Then we go to Q, which is question. You take all the headings, the subheadings, you turn around to a question. Very simple. So if the heading was the War of 1812, You might say, what was the War of 1812? Why did the war happen? I mean, you make a list of questions using that heading, and you leave space after each question. All right, so what do you think the first R then might be? So I've looked at it, I've made questions, now I'm going to finally do what? I'm probably gonna read. All right, now when I'm reading, I'm looking for answers to all my questions. What I've just given myself is a purpose for reading. And as you become a more proficient student, even if your professor doesn't give you your purpose, you can figure out how to make the purpose. And a lot of times, the best way to do that is to develop some questions. What am I trying to answer? Or else we go back to being a passive reader. We're just reading to read. We're just letting our eyes glaze over the page, and we have no idea what we're looking for. Then the last two R's, one is recite. Recite means to speak out loud, to say something. It sounds like a silly way to study, but I'm sure there's many of us who talk to ourselves, maybe getting ready in the morning, like to remind yourself to do something, or you're saying it over and over again, oh, when I get home today, I need to remember to do this, or you text yourself, whatever, you're still talking to yourself. However you do it, that's what reciting is. So you can teach it to someone else, you can sit in your room and ask yourself the question and see if you know the answers. And the last one's review. This is where the time management comes into play. If you've not given yourself, if it's the night before the test, there's no way you're getting through all SQ3R. There's no time to review, you just did it. This is where you need to make sure, we'll talk about working backwards. I know I have a test in 2 weeks, so what am I doing to make sure that I am ready for that test? Not the day before, but a week before or 2 weeks before. And we talk about this in the time management session, that a lot of times a professor will give you an assignment, maybe the first week of class you've already gotten that research paper, that review of the literature, whatever's due, and you may not hear a thing about it again until the day it's due. It might be just an email the night before, don't forget to upload, and you think, whoa, I forgot about that because nobody told me how to stay on target with that. So there's no time to review if you're looking at a planner the day before the test. You need to be thinking about all of that now. That's why a lot of instructors will take the time to make you a calendar so you can see the whole semester at a glance, at least most of it. We're going to talk a little bit about graphic organizers. And so there's a lot of different things that you can go online, you can print, that you can use. One of which is Cornell Notes, and I am going to bring that one up because we're going to give away some Cornell notebook, and I want to make sure that you have an idea how to use that. I'm going to guess it's not on this question. So what we do with the Cornell note-taking system is we divide up our paper into 3 sections. Do you know how to take this camera thing out? Would you do it for me? You just pull the drawer open and pop everything open while I'm talking. That way I can still keep going.
Let's find out.
Yeah. Oh, it's really easy to do. You'll get it. All right. So we divide the paper up into 3 sections. We have what's called the Q column on the left-hand side, and then we've got our note-taking column, and then we've got our summary column at the very end. And so you can use a plain sheet of paper, but we're going to give away, and we may have enough for almost everybody to take some today. We're going to give away anybody that wants to try this out. Notebooks that will show you exactly how to do that. If you'll press that power button. It's definitely not tape page. It may not click on until after the other one's been pushed. That's okay. We're good. All right. There we go. This is basically what you would divide up a regular sheet of notebook paper looks like. Divided up. But we also are going to give away, we've got some notebooks that are set up in the exact same way, same fashion. So on the left-hand side, you've got what we call the Q column. And then over here, you've got your note-taking column. And then at the very end of each page, let's see if this one may not have this summary column. You have to make it yourself. At the bottom, you would put your summary. So what you do for each page of notes is, when you're sitting in lecture, so we're gonna flip-flop it 2 different ways. If you were sitting in a lecture, you would write down all of your notes in the note-taking column and leave some space between things that are similar. You may have to recopy. We talked about that last week too. Recopy your notes also helps. After the lecture, when you go back to wherever you're going to be studying, you fill out the Q column and you label it with the things that are alike. So if you were taking notes, we're gonna go really, really basic. Let's just pretend we were talking about nouns, verbs, pronouns, something in maybe an English class. So I might write down everything I learned about nouns, and then here I just put the simple label of nouns. Then maybe common nouns, proper nouns, because these are the notes that I took. So very simple, and then that's how I would do it if I'm in a lecture. If you're reading, you're lucky enough to kind of know ahead of time what these cues might be. So it may be you use your headings, your subheadings, it may be the bolded words, and then you take your notes that go along with your cue. The best thing to do would be to read before you go to class, get all your cues down, take all your notes, and then using a different colored pen or use a pencil instead of a pen during the lecture, add to this. You can put, these cues can be questions. They could be, if you're in a math class, they might be diagrams or formulas, and then on this side you're going to define the formula. When do I use the Pythagorean theorem? So you might have a theorem, you might have what the theorem is, when you use it, what is it, how does it work, whatever it might be. If it's a science class, you might draw your cells here, and then you write down the notes about what each piece is. It really doesn't matter. The idea is that if you could do that ahead of time, then when you go to class, you can combine your notes, and then you have everything in one simple place. One more time. All right. Questions so far? We've gone through that kind of quickly. Mr. Lodge, are you going to show, or Dr. Lodge, are you going to show? Okay, go
Yeah, we have time to do.
Yeah, we've got about 3 or 4
Okay.
minutes. Yeah, if you want to show that.
So this is a free program that I just want to very quickly share with you. It's at getcoldturkey.com. Put it up here in big type real quick, just so. Getcoldturkey.com. It's completely free. It is donation based, but I've been using it for free for a while now. It is a program that you can download, and what it does, let's see if I can find. It lets you set up, you can even do, I don't do a schedule, I do mine when I need it, but you can set it up so that it will block websites for a certain period of time. So for instance, if I know, okay, I need to write this paper, I'm giving myself 2 hours. I'll turn on the program, I'll tell for 2 hours, block this list of websites. Facebook, Reddit, Gmail, Wikipedia, wherever I might find myself distracted on the internet. And when you go to it, it will display either an error page or a nice little quote. It will not let you access that page. And you're thinking, well, I'll just turn the program off. You can't. Once you turn it on, the only way to turn it off is for the time to run out, or they actually do offer a save program in case you set your time for too long. Because like you can set for 2 or 3 hours, you can set it for a few weeks. Restarting your computer will not do it. Once you've told it, do not let me access these websites, you are locked out. Cannot do it. It's free. It is a great way to, if you don't trust yourself. Because there have been plenty of times that I've been like, okay, I'm going to study. I need to go to EBSCOhost. And the next thing I know, I'm typing in facebook.com and then I'm gone. With this running in the background, it will not let you. So, Get Cold Turkey. It is free. I highly recommend it. I use it here at work. So, we did not. We also have an Instagram page now.
And it is up here. It is at WKU Literacy Center. So for those of you that are on Instagram, if you want to follow us on that, we've posted some pictures already. A picture.
50 followers.
Yay, okay.
Pretty Taylor of it, isn't it?
Yeah. The reason that we posted these praxis books is this is for the, we're calling it the case, the core. It's the praxis 1. So it's for those of you who are thinking you want to go into education, to get admitted into the education program, whatever education program you're going into, you have to pass this PPST that's called many different things. So we have books that are available in the Literacy Center, just 2 doors down, so we're in 2066. We have the books that we will loan you. There are practice tests in them, online access that you can get to those, and we will also help you set up study groups. So if we get, we've talked to a couple of classes that we're giving this information to. 2 of the Literacy 320 classes have been told, so if they start forming study groups, if you think you're interested, even if you know you're an education major and you don't have to take it for another year, if you want to just come look at the books just to see what you expect, not a problem, but we're gonna try to get together some study groups so that people can study together. The other thing that we'll be doing for those of you that are education majors, we're gonna be giving away, those that use the center to study, that are using it to study their literacy or their block 1, block 2, or their practicum, if they're in their study. We're just going to be giving randomly away some free children's books to add to your library collection if you're a education major. For those of you that are not, every time you swipe in to study in the center, we're also doing a weekly giveaway for a book. So we'll be posting that probably on Instagram, I guess now, or on Facebook. So we already have one winner, and so you'll be notified to come and pick out your free book. And we'll be doing that, picking a few winners every week. So the more hours you log, the more chances you get to be entered into that drawing. So follow us, so you can get all of those updates, find out who our winner is. You can eat there, it tells you a place to study, read a book, you can work with a group. And we're there to help too, so it's not just an empty classroom. We have several student workers and a GA, and we have instructors that can help you with anything that has to do with literacy. So feel free to stop by. I think, did you count how many people?
We had 21 last time I counted.
Okay. If you're well UIC, many of us already signed in. We talked about this last week, and so we won't bring it up, but if you want to stay after, I'll be happy to explain it to you. If you want to join Well U, I'll send this in the morning, so that gives you tonight. If you still want to sign up, you can sign in. I'll just send that. I send it usually the next morning, and you get Well U credit for that, so make sure you've signed in. We do have out some different things that you can take with you today. One of them is the Cornell notebook. So if you want to try that out, if you thought that might be a good note-taking strategy, sometimes it's just a way to just being organized helps. There are several of these. This one is set up like a storyboard, so those of you that maybe enjoy visualizing more, it has a place to put a picture for your notes, and then just where you can write on the lines next to it. These are also the Cornell note-taking system. This is another visualizing, and then if you'd rather, we've got Cornell notes set up so that you can just put it in a binder if you would prefer. So when you're leaving today, feel free to take, if you want to try out one of these systems. Brittany, let's choose, you counted how many?
Two.